The political world has just been shaken to its core. In a moment that stunned millions watching live, Keir Starmer found himself cornered, exposed, and visibly shaken as explosive revelations burst onto national television. What happened next felt like a complete meltdown of authority, whispers turning into shock, shock turning into chaos, and chaos turning into the unthinkable. The looming possibility of Starmer's resignation. The atmosphere wasn't just tense, it was suffocating, and Britain had never seen him like this before. The tension across Westminster had been rising for days, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared the nation for what unfolded live on TV tonight. It began as a routine political discussion, the kind Starmer had handled countless times. Calm, controlled, predictable. But as the cameras rolled and the questions shifted, the ground beneath him suddenly fractured. A leaked document, one whispered about behind closed doors, one senior figures had tried desperately to bury, was unexpectedly exposed right in front of him, leaving Starmer frozen, blinking rapidly as he tried to steady himself. For a moment, the entire studio fell silent. Even the host hesitated, sensing the weight of what had just been revealed. Starmer's expression tightened, his normally confident posture collapsing under the pressure. It wasn't anger, it wasn't frustration. It was something far more damaging. Fear. He knew the revelation wasn't just another political jab, it was a direct hit to his credibility. The kind that could end careers overnight. Within seconds, social media erupted, phones buzzed, commentators scrambled for answers, journalists rushed to confirm the leak, while political rivals smelled blood in the water. And Starmer, he appeared trapped, trying to speak but failing to form a single solid sentence. Every word that left his mouth sounded weaker than the last, as if he was fighting to hold together a leadership already cracking apart. The host pressed on, asking the questions Starmer hoped would never surface. His voice shook as he tried to deflect, but his usual control had vanished. The audience watching at home could feel it. This wasn't an ordinary political stumble. This was a breakdown in real time, a moment that would replay again and again, dominating headlines and fueling speculation that his leadership might not survive the week, or even the night. Behind the scenes, Labour insiders reportedly scrambled, unsure whether to defend him or distance themselves. Allies appeared shocked. Critics looked triumphant, and as Starmer attempted to regain his footing, his hands tightened on the desk, his eyes darting, his voice breaking. The pressure was crushing, live, unfiltered, and impossible to escape. Every second felt like a countdown. Every glance felt like a sign. Every breath hinted that the end was coming faster than anyone expected. By the time cameras cut to commercial, the damage was already done. The leak had gone public, the country had witnessed the most vulnerable moment of his political career, and whispers inside Westminster grew louder with a single terrifying question. Was Keir Starmer about to resign? As soon as the broadcast ended, the shock spread like wildfire. Newsrooms across the country went into emergency mode, scrambling to decode the leaked revelations that had just left the Labour leader visibly shaken. In London, journalists gathered in clusters, whispering frantically, their eyes glued to screens, replaying Starmer's stunned reaction again and again. Every replay made the situation look worse. His silence, his hesitation, his inability to respond. It wasn't just a political misstep, it looked like a collapse. Within minutes, political commentators on rival networks pounced. Analysts who once described Starmer as calm and strategic were suddenly calling his leadership exposed and vulnerable, hanging by a thread. The country was watching this pressure build in real time, and it felt like the kind of moment that turns political careers into headlines of history. Even experienced broadcasters sounded breathless as they tried to piece together what the leak truly meant and why it hit Starmer so hard. Online, the reaction was explosive. Hashtags surged at lightning speed, and social media platforms drowned in speculation. People demanded answers. Memes, clips and theories flooded timelines, but beneath all the noise was one dominating question that echoed louder than everything else. What was Starmer hiding? The leak had opened a door that could no longer be shut, and now millions were pushing through it at once, hungry for truth and clarity. The suspense only fueled the chaos further. Meanwhile, inside Parliament, the atmosphere was even darker. MPs hurried through corridors, their faces tense, their whispers sharp. Some called emergency meetings, others locked their doors, choosing silence over confrontation. Even senior Labour members who typically defended Starmer appeared unusually quiet. Their phones buzzed non-stop. Their expressions revealed panic they tried to hide, and the uncertainty spread to staff, advisors and strategists who knew that one wrong word could fan the flames even higher. Reports soon surfaced that Labour insiders were divided. Some urged Starmer to address the nation immediately, to show strength before the narrative swallowed him whole. Others whispered that it might already be too late, that the damage had pierced too deep, and that the whispers of resignation were no longer whispers at all, they were predictions. 3 senior figures were said to be discussing transition plans, a phrase that alone sent commentators spiralling. The walls around Starmer seemed to be closing faster than he could react. Everywhere from homes to cafes to offices, people replayed the broadcast, studying his face, his voice, his hesitation. And with every replay, one thing became painfully clear. The man once portrayed as steady and composed now looked like someone standing on the edge of a political cliff. The country could sense it, his party could sense it, and Starmer, more than anyone, felt it closing in. Back at Labour headquarters, the atmosphere had shifted from confusion to outright crisis. The moment the leak aired, senior advisors rushed into private rooms, slamming doors behind them as hurried conversations erupted. Phones rang non-stop, messages poured in. A sense of panic pulsed through the building, growing stronger with every new update. Starmer's closest team, normally calm, disciplined and united, suddenly found themselves fractured, unsure of how to contain the chaos spiralling out of control. Behind closed doors, voices rose. Some advisors insisted the party must immediately launch a counter-narrative claiming the leak was exaggerated or manipulated. Others argued that denying it would only make the situation worse, feeding suspicion and giving Starmer's rivals even more ammunition. The tension was explosive. Every suggestion clashed with another, and every second lost felt like another blow to Starmer's already shaken image. The team that once operated like a machine was now falling apart under the weight of a crisis they never saw coming. In another room, MPs loyal to Starmer paced anxiously, debating their next move. They knew the public had witnessed something damaging, something that couldn't be explained away with a simple press release. The leader they defended for years had been caught on live television in a moment of weakness, hesitating, crumbling, exposed. And with the leak now dominating headlines, some MPs whispered fears they rarely admitted. If Starmer couldn't control the narrative would consume him. The most unsettling whispers came from senior members who had always stood by him. Some questioned whether the Labour Party could survive a prolonged scandal this close to critical political moments. Others suggested that the party must prepare for contingencies, a word that inside political circles that often means leadership change. The idea that Starmer's time at the top could be nearing an end wasn't just speculation anymore, it was becoming a serious internal discussion, and that internal debate alone added more fuel to the growing fire. Meanwhile, staff members who handled communications scrambled to review every minute of Starmer's public appearances, searching for patterns or clues that might help craft a defence. But the expressions on their faces said everything. There was no easy way out. The footage was too clear, the reaction too raw, the leak too significant. There was no spinning this disaster without risking even greater backlash. It felt like trying to contain a storm with bare hands. Every corridor inside headquarters buzzed with anxiety. People who normally spoke confidently now whispered, glancing over their shoulders as if the walls themselves were listening. Some feared a split, others feared resignation, and everyone feared what the next hour, the next headline, the next broadcast would bring. Even Starmer's most trusted allies admitted privately that the country had seen something that couldn't be reversed. Once an image shatters, rebuilding it becomes nearly impossible. As night fell, the Labour headquarters felt less like the centre of a political movement and more like a sinking ship. One where every person on board knew the water was rising fast. And they couldn't tell whether Starmer would fight his way out or finally give in to the pressure closing around him. While Labour headquarters drowned in confusion, Starmer's political rivals sensed the perfect moment to strike. Across Westminster, offices lit up late into the night as opposing parties prepared their responses. They had seen the broadcast. They had seen Starmer freeze, stumble and lose control. And they knew that moments like this, rare, raw and publicly devastating, could change the direction of British politics in an instant. It wasn't just an opportunity, it was an opening they had been waiting for. The first attacks came quietly, disguised as concerned statements from rival MPs. They questioned Starmer's judgment, demanded clarification and hinted that the country deserved stronger leadership. But soon the tone sharpened. High-profile figures appeared on late-night political shows, their words carefully crafted, but unmistakably aggressive. They accused Starmer of hiding the truth, of dodging accountability, of failing the public when transparency mattered most. Some even called the leak a national embarrassment, claiming that his reaction proved he was unfit to lead. But the most explosive moment came when one well-known political heavyweight, one of Starmer's harshest long-time critics, delivered a direct and unforgiving message. With confidence and precision, he declared that what the country witnessed was not just a bad moment, but a collapse of leadership. He stated that no leader should ever freeze under pressure in front of millions. And then, with deliberate emphasis, he said the words that sent shockwaves through every newsroom in Britain. It is time for Keir Starmer to consider stepping down. Those words spread like wildfire. They bounced across social media, flashed on television tickers, and filled every headline within minutes. It was the first open call for Starmer's resignation, and once it was spoken, more followed. Rivals sensed weakness, and in politics, weakness invites attack. Multiple MPs from opposing parties joined in, demanding urgent explanations, official investigations, and in some cases, an immediate leadership review. The pressure, already unbearable, now surged to a level Starmer had never faced before. Even critics within Labour saw an opportunity. Figures who had been silent for months suddenly stepped into the spotlight. Some had personal grievances, others saw strategic advantage. But what united them was simple. They all knew a wounded leader is easier to push aside. Their statements were subtle but strategic. Phrases like deep concern, serious questions and loss of confidence began circulating among Labour MPs. Each word chipped away at Starmer's authority, weakening it piece by piece. And while all this unfolded, the public was glued to their screens. Every new comment, every new headline added to the suspense. The idea of Starmer resigning, once unthinkable, now felt increasingly possible, maybe even likely. People debated in homes, in restaurants, online, everywhere. The political climate had transformed into a storm so intense that even neutral observers could feel the pressure squeezing the entire government. The situation was no longer just a leak or a moment of hesitation or a political slip. It had become a full-blown siege, with rivals attacking from every direction and insiders struggling to defend a leader who suddenly looked powerless. Starmer's silence only made the situation worse. As the night grew darker, one truth became unavoidable. The calls for him to step down were growing louder, and soon they might be impossible to ignore. Hours passed with the nation waiting, watching and questioning. Every newsroom had one main headline. Every political panel had one topic. Every social media feed spun with one burning question. Where is Keir Starmer? The leak had detonated like a political bomb, and his silence only added fuel to the chaos. Even those who supported him grew restless. People wanted answers immediately, and finally, after the longest silence of his career, Starmer stepped forward. He appeared before the cameras late in the night, looking exhausted, pale and tense. His usual controlled posture was gone, replaced by a man visibly burdened by the weight of the moment. The lights hit his face, revealing the strain in his eyes, the stress in his voice, the uncertainty in his expression. For the first time, Britain wasn't looking at a political warrior. They were staring at someone who looked cornered, shaken and unsure of his next step. At first, he tried to speak with confidence. He attempted to project strength, but his words fell flat. His voice wavered slightly, just enough for the public to notice. He said the leak was misleading, that the situation was being blown out of proportion, and that the truth would come out soon. But every sentence felt defensive. Every explanation sounded like someone trying to escape a storm rather than face it head on, and everyone watching could sense it. He took a deep breath, trying to settle himself, but the pressure was crushing. He paused, his eyes lowered, his shoulders dropped. For a moment, it looked like he was struggling to even continue. The studio fell silent, waiting for what he would say next. And then, in a voice that betrayed the strain he had been hiding, he admitted that the leak had created a serious situation, one that requires reflection. Those words struck harder than anything his rivals had said all day. Reflection. Serious situation. For many viewers, it sounded like he was preparing for something bigger, something final. Instantly, commentators exploded with theories. Some believed Starmer was trying to buy time. Others believed he was softening the ground for a sudden announcement. And deeper inside Labour, panic intensified. Advisors who had been urging him to fight through the crisis were now unsure. Those who quietly pushed for resignation felt vindicated. The split inside the party widened with every moment he spoke. But the most shocking moment of the entire broadcast came near the end. Starmer looked directly into the camera, his voice quieter than before, and said, "I understand the concerns being raised. I will address them fully. And I will make a decision that is right for the country." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Social media erupted once again. Political commentators froze mid-sentence. Rival MPs seized the moment, calling his words a sign of defeat. Those watching from home felt chills run through them. It wasn't just what he so said, it was how he said it. Calm, slow, heavy. A tone that hinted at a leader standing at the edge of a historic decision. No confirmation, no denial, no reassurance, just a sentence that sounded like the beginning of the end. And it left the entire nation hanging in suspense, waiting for what Starmer would do next. As the broadcast ended, one terrifying reality became clear. The possibility of his resignation was no longer just speculation. It felt close, dangerously close. And Britain braced itself for what the next hours might bring.